The war in the Middle East has absolutely nothing to do with the Bible, has absolutely nothing to do with God. It has to do with the human mind. Remember we told you last week, one time Saddam Hussein was a little kid, and his parents and his church and everybody told him that you were his enemy. The West was his enemy. The Western religion was a false religion. It was a paganistic religion. His religion was right. And as you know, ever since you've been a child, you've been warned about the Eastern religions. Oh, you know, stay away from the Buddhists, and stay away from the Krishnas, and stay away from the Muslims, and they have a false religion, and Jesus is the only way, the Bible's the only way. So when we teach each other that, see, they're teaching their people that we're wrong, we're teaching our people that they're evil, and before you know it, you can't talk to one another, so you start shooting at one another. That's why we have a war in the Middle East. It's not because of God, it's because of us. I mean, how many times has anybody in your church or in your Christian congregation ever told you, you know, that you should try to make friends with Syrians or make friends with Jordanians or try to get to understand the Muslims? Never. Oh, no, stay away from those people. Stay away from those people. Well, when you stay away from those people, you separate, you become suspicious. You become concerned and fearful, and before you know it, you're ready to protect yourself from them, and they're ready to protect themselves from you, and you've got a war.
Hey guys, thanks for stopping in again. Thanks for coming back. I appreciate the comments, the likes, and you know, the interest in what I have to say. I'm glad you guys are following along. I'm glad some people are asking questions and reaching out. Actually, somebody reached out and told me that I've been focusing on the financial part and what's going on, but I haven't been looking deep enough to see the religious aspects of what's happening in the Middle East right now. And I guess they're probably right, because I myself, I don't believe in religion at all. I believe that religion is the single biggest problem that the world has today. So while we're on the subject, I guess I'll explain my stance on it. You see, I believe that religion is a tool that was used as a form of control over human beings who were looking for answers for themselves, and they gave their governance to an outside source, and that's where religion was born. They took the story of the universe and turned it into a story of people. If you ask me, you know, they say that God gave us his only son. To me, that's our son, as in the son that's outside, because there's only one. Then, you know, it's got his 12 disciples, and we have 12 astrological signs, you know, and stuff like that. If you look at, like, Easter and the Risen, you know, the sun goes down, and you know, if you look at the old stories about the sun and the stars, you'll see that the story kind of correlates in with the story of the Bible and stories that are in all kinds of religious texts. But, you know, for me, it's like God never wrote a book. Okay, God didn't speak a language. He didn't have a religion, and he certainly didn't have the world divided up using his name as the tool for that division. So to me, you know, we are the creator, okay? We are all of the divine spark. So to put this in an aspect for the normal person to understand, it's like you go get a cup of water out of the ocean, right? And that cup of water is still ocean water. It's just not in the ocean. It's droplets of the ocean collected in the water or in the cup. And that's what we are. Okay, we're droplets of the creator, but we're still the creator. All right, we're still the original creation, and we're still in tune with that creator. But we're so far gone from ourselves, teaching yourself over your ego. I had an episode about that. You know, you gotta tune into yourself and tune your brain to the right frequency, and you'll live the life that you want to live based on the frequency that you're resonating. Okay, and most of us resonate lower frequencies because we're anxious and we're depressed and we're living in the past, or we're thinking about the future, and really time for the most part, doesn't really exist for human beings. It exists as a physical threshold, as in time, so we can tell when history happens. But as far as time actually existing, it doesn't really exist, because the past is already gone, the future hasn't happened, and in the 2 seconds I just explained that to you, the present is already gone. So time itself doesn't really exist, because when you're with somebody you love and you're having fun and you're having a good time, time just seems to disappear and it goes super fast, right? But when you're at work and you're ready to go home and you're in that last hour, it seems like that last hour takes 3 hours. Well, how the fuck does that make sense if time only moves at one pace and time only follows one law? But time doesn't really exist, okay? Energy exists, and that's what we are. And time is a construct that we use to frame our time in history. So, just my background on it. I'm not, like I said, I'm not a religious person at all. I do believe in a creator, because that's what he does. He creates things, and that's the language that he speaks. He speaks in creation. If you want to look for the language, you got to look for the math, because that's technically the only language that he speaks. That's the way you can break it down. You can break down every geometrical shape in nature down to the very minute numbers, which usually end up in pi, or something in 3, 6s, and 9s. So, the Fibonacci sequence, things like that are all over nature. We can delve into that, but today we're gonna get into the religious aspects of this war and just go over each country and the religion that they believe in and their story behind it, at least what I have on this thing. So I'm going to read my notes, so forgive me for the no eye contact thing here, but I want to go through this with you guys because this is something I didn't know. Like I said, I like knowing stuff, and I don't look through stuff through a religious lens. I like to have a non-biased opinion when it comes to things like that, because like I said, I don't try to have bias or feelings when it comes to anything, so that way I can be open-minded and have as open to opinion and any facts that come my way, rather than just saying, oh, it's not true because I don't believe that. Like, no, it can still be true just because you don't fucking believe it. So let's see here. It says, first we'll get into the Jewish religious side. It says land, covenant, and chosenness. Chosenness. This is what we do in religion. We think God has a chosen favorite. Is that okay? Like I said, I don't really follow religion. I don't play by those rules, but I'm just gonna read it, okay? We'll get into that another time. All right. So divine promise of the land. Oh, God was giving land out. He was a real estate agent too. He's a creator of all and a real estate agent, or an island real estater at that. So, anyways, divine promise of the land. The Hebrew Bible repeatedly frames the land as promised by God to the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Examples given: Genesis, Deuteronomy, Joshua. This is the theological backbone of religious Zionism, the belief that Jewish sovereignty in the land of Israel is not just political, but covenantal. Religious Zionism today. Religious Zionists and ultranationalists currently see modern Israel, and especially control over Judea and Samaria, the West Bank, and Jerusalem, as a step in the redemptive process. Some groups link settlement and expansion and refusal of territorial compromise directly to mitzvah, commandments tied to the land. Oh, well, I guess that explains why they fucking leveled the West Bank. Huh. Let's just back up a second there, Lo. It says a step in redemptive process. I'm going to have to look at what they're getting redemption for. I'm confused. Maybe something happened. I'm not sure. We're going to definitely have to look at that. It says Temple Mount, Third Temple, and the red heifers. Oh, I heard about that. That's those red bulls. I heard they were shipping them in America. I think we have something. I'm sure it's going to be in here. So Temple Mount and the Al Haram Al Sharif. For religious Jews, the Temple Mount is the holiest site location on the first and second temples. A small but influential set of groups, example, the Temple Institute, openly prepare for a future third temple, recreating vessels, priestly garments, and studying sacrificial law. God doesn't want any of his creatures sacrificed. I don't know what you guys are sacrificing to, but I can promise you right now that our all-knowing, all loving God, all creating God does not want you to sacrifice anything for him. Okay? Maybe your ego. That's the only thing you got to sacrifice for him. Okay? This is, I'm going to have to read what they believe in now. Like, we're going to have to do a whole episode on what it is people believe in, because I had no fucking idea that this is the type of shit that we're doing. Anyways, red heifer symbolism. Here we go. A perfectly red heifer, numbers 19, is required in biblical law for ritual purification. In recent years, red heifers have been imported from the United States by Christian Zionists and are welcomed by Israeli religious officials, explicitly tied to temple-related hopes. Oh, we're definitely going to have to look into this shit. This is definitely going to... All right. So, it says Amalek in the total war language. After October 7th, Netanyahu publicly cited the biblical command regarding Amalek, Israel's archetypal enemy, implying a total, uncompromising struggle. Some scholars note that the original text in 1 Samuel 15 is read by many as a command to annihilate the Amalek, which makes its use in modern war rhetoric highly charged. In this frame, Hamas, or even broader enemies, are cast not just as political foes, but as the existential, almost mythic enemies of God's people that shifts the conflict from negotiable politics to sacred duty. God's people. So while he was creating everybody equally, he said these are the people who are above everybody else. That's a thing. God plays favorites. I try not to even play favorites with my fucking kids because I know that they would rebel and it would be hell. So this would, that literally falls into that category. If dad was favoring a group of people over the rest of us would be pretty fucking pissed off that he's only favoring you versus us. Like, why is he favoring you? Are you the oldest brother? Are you the oldest sibling? I'm confused. Why is dad giving you land? Why is dad giving you the title of his chosen people, like his favorite son or his favorite daughter? Like, we can do that. Like, dads don't do that. The father of all things did not do that. Okay, I don't know where this book came from, but it didn't come from God, because as I stated before, God didn't write no fucking books. So, you don't have no authority for any fucking thing in the world based on some goddamn book, because God did not write it. God does not have a favorite. That doesn't mean you don't have a right to exist. Everybody has a right to fucking exist. But this shit right here is wild. Sacrificing calves for a god? What, does he fucking eat meat? He's a carnivore? What are we doing? This is the type of shit I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. When I say people are fucking religious, they're fucking crazy. You actually believe some book that you're reading that was filtered down and handed to you and filtered like fucking water, that that's the ultimate truth? Okay, and this part right here, sacrificing people or sacrificing heifers to God. He already promised you a land. Why do you got to sacrifice anything to him? I'm confused. Let me just keep going, because this is already irritating. I'm not even here. Let me just reread that last part. In this frame, enemies are cast not just as political foes, but as existential, almost mythic enemies of God's people. That shifts this conflict from negotiable politics to sacred duty. Oh, it's your sacred duty to defeat the Amalek, which is the enemies of God's chosen people. But what are those enemies? You get to decide who God's chosen people's enemies are? I'm confused. I guess that's the Jewish side, okay? So let's go to the Islamic side. Again, I don't know really much about this shit because I'm not a religious person. So let's see what it says. Al-Aqsa, Jerusalem, and sacred geography. Al-Aqsa status. Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem is Islam's third holiest site, tied to the Prophet Muhammad's night journey, control over the compound. It is therefore not just political, but deeply theological. Alaska flood branding. Hamas named the October 7th attack Operation Alaska Flood, explicitly linking it to the defense of the mosque and the wider sanctuary. Trigger narrative. Hamas spokesmen and some Palestinian sources have cited Jewish extremists and Christian Zionist efforts to perform temple-related sacrifices, including the red heifer plans near the site, as a key religious trigger. Oh, so the red heifer thing is like the opposite of what Muslims want? I think I need to interview somebody on this. I'm lost. We're definitely gonna have to dive into this shit. Maybe we'll just do an episode on Judaism and then an episode on... We're gonna have to do a few episodes. This shit is confusing. I'm so confused. They're fighting over sacrificing heifers in a temple. Oh, I see. Okay, so the sacrificing the heifers is because they want to rebuild a third temple, but they want to rebuild it as a Jewish Israeli temple, and it's actually the third holiest site for Muslims in the world. Oh. So God's chosen people just happen to get a land that one of the holiest sites for another group of his people is, so they can like be there as a conflict of interest, or like Big Brother has Dad's house and we're not allowed over there. Is that, am I right? Am I missing something? I'm gonna have to look into this for sure. The Quranic framing in the jihad. Quranic verse in Hamas logo. Hamas's official logo for the Alaska flood incorporates a verse, the Surah Al-Mahdai. Enter upon them through the gate, and when you enter it, you will be the victors. Originally about the Israelites entering Canaan, some analysts argue that Hamas is reappropriating that story, casting themselves as the true inheritors of the land and Israel as illegitimate. Okay, I see what's happening here. So this is some ancient shit here, because, you know, we've been using religious texts as our guides for forever. So, you know, I don't know what the human being's obsession with outside governance is, but I guess that's what they sell us when you sell that the God is an outside source rather than an inside source. So, Hamas founding charter and later documents frame the struggle as jihad to liberate all of Palestine, not just Gaza or the West Bank. This is both nationalist and religious. Palestine is often described as Waqf, endowed Islamic land that cannot be surrendered. I mean, it was Palestine before Israel got there. I don't know what was wrong with the two-state solution. Muslims and Jewish people and Christians have lived together several times. There's these small factions of, you know, Muslims who are extremists, but there's small factions of every race, religion, and creed that are fucking extreme. And I'm under the impression that if we fought them together, we would get further than we would just blowing shit up. But again, that's me. So Let's continue. Martyrdom and the Shahada. Language of martyrdom is central. Fighters and civilians killed in the conflict are often described as martyrs, giving the war a salvic dimension. Death in this struggle is framed as spiritually victorious. Oh, yeah, if you die in the act of war, then you automatically go to heaven and get to be with Allah. Sounds like what they believe here. Analysts note that other Islamist groups sometimes used end times or civilizational language, casting the conflict as part of a broader struggle between Islam and its enemies, not just a local territorial dispute. That makes sense. It's deeper than, what's on the surface. Obviously, for me, it's, for these people, it's money and power and whatnot, and that's the way it goes. Money and power is usually the way of everything. But this is something that I was hearing about. This is what made me go to this. Is somebody said something about they were calling Trump like the fucking prophet or some shit like that. Like, I don't know. It's some crazy shit. Anyways, this is the third aspect of it. This is America. Christian side. Zionism, prophecy, and the Trump messianic rhetoric. Oh, yeah, this is it. So, Christian Zionism and Israel. America tied hand and foot to Israel through religion too, I guess. Many evangelical and dispensationalist Christians read modern Israel as a fulfillment of biblical prophecy and a necessary stage before the second coming of Christ. Israel's wars and control of Jerusalem are interpreted through books like Daniel, Ezekiel, and Revelation. I've heard of this before. Okay, well, I'm more familiar with Christian religion than I am with Muslim or Jewish. Obviously, like I said, I'm not a religious person, so I'm not of any affiliation to any of these. This is just research that I asked for AI to give me a breakdown of all three sides, so we could go through it quickly in about 30 minutes. So, let's see here. Support for Jewish temple movements. Some Christian Zionists actively support Jewish groups preparing for a third temple, including funding Temple Institute projects and, as noted, providing red heifers from Texas. Their stated logic: rebuilding the temple is part of God's prophetic plan. That actually has a Wikipedia link on it. I wonder if we can click on it. Use of religious language and symbolism in Gaza war. Let's see here. Let's see here. Okay, so this is saying that this is the rationale for going into the thing. I want to get to the religious aspects. Let's see here. It says, in the United States, religious justifications were first developed in the 19th century and are primarily supported by Protestants who believe in dispensationalism. Pete Hegseth, the United States Secretary of Defense, asserted that war was called upon by God and Christianity. He avoided blaming Islam, although he did blame the Iranian regime for its Islamic delusions. Marco Rubio, the United States Secretary of State, has similarly described the regime as a religious fanatic lunatics. Netanyahu compared Iran to the Amalekites, the Amalek, an ancient enemy from the Bible. The Bible states that God ordered Israelites to kill every last man, woman, and child of the Amalekites, the Amaleks. Wow. So they really believe this shit. No wonder they just wiped through all those women, children, and Gaza like it was nothing. It was 74,000 people that are registered killed. That doesn't include the kids and women and men that are buried inside their cars in the rubble on the side of the road. Anyways, a watchdog group disclosed they were told that the war was part of God's plan, and that some military commanders have compared the war to end times, especially Armageddon, an event in which Jesus returns in what is known as the second coming and mentioned in the book of Revelation. One officer complained that he was told by a commander that Donald Trump was anointed by Jesus. Let me read that again. One officer complained that he was told by a commander that Donald Trump was anointed by Jesus. Some U.S. politicians are calling for investigations for this. One of the major complaints of this was himself a Christian. However, the allegations are still unverified. Many other Christians criticized the war. It's naming off the popes in the church. Let's see, analysts for religious justifications of the war. So Hashami argued that religious justifications played a large role behind the war. Greg Roman, the director of Middle East Forum, said that there are Judeo-Christian justifications being made for the war. Professor Jolion Mitchell noted that both sides of the war are profess divine favor. Abu Sharif said that the United States' religious justifications for this war are the most appealing among Christian Zionists and evangelical Christians. He also said that the war is not theological but geopolitical. However, Riaz Korkar of Al Jazeera argued that religion plays just as much a role in the war as strategy. Okay. Well, let's go over here where we were at. Prophetic timeline, support for the Jewish temple movements. We did that. Okay, so here we have the spiritual war framing and the Gaza region. My computer's freezing. Hold on. Uh-oh. Okay. Sorry, guys. Sorry. I lost my spot here. Okay. Spiritual warframing of Gaza and the region. Good versus evil narrative. In parts of the U.S. evangelical media, the Israel-Hamas war is framed as spiritual war between God's people and forces of darkness, not just a geopolitical conflict. This can flatten Palestinian identity into purely terrorist or Islamic enemy categories and sacralize Israeli military action. Some preachers explicitly connect current wars, unrest in Jerusalem, and regional alignments to end times prophecy charts, treating each escalation as another sign of the times. A recurring evangelical narrative casts Trump as modern Cyrus, a flawed, non-pious ruler used by God to protect Israel and advance prophecy. Example giving, moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem, backing Israeli sovereignty claims. This is drawn from Isaiah's portrayal of Cyrus as God's anointed instrument, despite being a pagan king. Okay. So apparently Trump is the anointed one. He's a flawed person who comes over to protect Israel and advance prophecy. Okay. Messianic overtones. In the framework, Trump is not literally the Messiah, but he is treated as a providential figure whose victories and defeats are spiritually loaded. Legal troubles or political attacks are framed as satanic opposition to God's plan. His success are read as confirmation of divine favor. For some in this camp, supporting Trump and supporting maximalist Israeli positions are part of the same religious duty. The war in Gaza, the status of Al-Aqsa, Temple Mount, and the U.S. elections get folded into one apocalyptic storyline. How the three religion frames collide. Jewish Temple Mount as site of past and future temple, center of covenantal history. Muslims, Alaska as third holiest mosque tied to Muhammad's night journey and Islamic sovereignty. Christian Zionists, same hilltop as the prophetic stage for end times and Christ's return. Each side sees a sacred threat. Jewish extremists figure Al-Aqsa and Islamic control block the temple's restoration. Islamists fear Jewish and Christians plan to destroy Al-Aqsa and erase Islamic presence. So they think they're going to blow up the mosque. So, just so we're clear, if the Al-Aqsa mosque gets blown up during this war, it was not the Iranians. Christian Zionists fear any division of Jerusalem or constraints on Israel are resisting God's plan. Political moves, settlements, raids, rocket fire, embassy moves, temple activism are not just policy choices. They are read as moves in divine script. That's why compromise looks like betrayal of God in each narrative. Okay. So, like I said, it appears that religion is a huge problem when it comes to world stage, and we could look back over history to look at the terrible things that religions have done. I mean, I know Catholics used to burn women saying that they were witches, so we're going to dive into a lot of that. I just wanted to touch base on the religious aspects of this war that's happening because our troops are on the way over there. Again, let's pray for our troops. Wish them the best, and I hope that they survive whatever it is they're walking into. Hopefully they can talk out of whatever the fuck's happening so they don't have to get in there and get in between this religious nightmare, apparently, that's going on, where we're going to sacrifice some red heifers for a god that eats beef. So he couldn't just make an Arby's in heaven. He wants to eat red heifer beef. So anyways, I thank you for stopping in. We're going to definitely dive into some more of those religions because I have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. So thank you for coming. I love you. I appreciate you. Like, share, comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have intel on any of this shit because it's not my forte. I'm not a religious person. So I appreciate you. Let people know about me. See you guys next time. Thank you.